Mizzo here. Guess what? I found a whiteboard. I'm at my mom's house because remember she had surgery, and I said to my sister, "We don't have anything that's like a whiteboard, do we?" Because a couple of these lessons that I'm teaching for a few different classes, I could use a PowerPoint slide, but like when I do it on the board, I like move and like reference the words a lot, and I didn't want to figure out how to do it. I didn't think it would work as well. She was like, "We have that thing you bought mom from a garage sale." So my mom always says, "Any words of wisdom?" Like whenever she's recording on vacation or whatever. So I found this for her at a garage sale, and it's got like paint and stickers on it, and it's hilarious, but it's totally gonna work for us. Okay, so today we're talking about listening and responding. And I'll be honest, when I first started teaching this, I was like, meh, listening, whatever. And now, as you know, I get older and smarter. Can you hear the birds? What a nice part of my video. I'm like, oh, listening. This is really important. So, I'm not gonna go over, why listening is important. The book lays out, 6 very clear reasons. I will just generally give my Mizzo version of this because theirs are pretty like, it will help your memory, it will help your blah, right? I'm gonna remind you that listening is a super key part of communicating. So if you go back to some of those basic models in terms of how messages, go from one person to another, right? Talking, expressing, stimulation, any sort of expression really gets the emphasis in communication, right? When we see somebody moving, we see somebody talking, we like hear somebody, right? Like that is communication, right? And especially in rhetoric, like if you think of symbols, I study rhetoric, and we're going to talk about that in a few weeks. This idea that like it's all about the object, it's all about the text, it's all about the thing that is sending the information, right? But man, if you really get into communication, um, thinking about the audience or the person receiving that information, that is a huge part of communication. And in terms of like how we receive that information, how our experiences impact how we receive that information. And I'm using receive very specifically because listening is part of this, right? I think we can receive communications in a lot of ways, through feelings, through touch, through taste, right? Through a lot of things we can experience or receive information. But our main way we do that is through listening. And hearing and listening are 2 different things. And I don't super like how the book talks about hearing, which I'm going to talk about. Hearing, usually, the book doesn't really do this, but usually hearing is distinguished as the stuff happening around you and how you take in, right? That, like, the birds are chirping outside right now and I can hear them. I'm not super paying attention to them, but I can hear them. My mom has an ice machine, and every once in a while it'll drop the ice, right? I can hear that. I often teach in rooms that have like an air conditioner or a heating, and it'll be constantly making like a noise. And when it shuts off, that's when I notice it. I've been hearing it, but I haven't been listening to it, right? So listening becomes the active process of understanding and paying attention to the sounds around you. Now, for the book really focuses on not just any sound, but communicative sound. So verbal and nonverbal messaging, right? It's like the active participation in receiving those messages. That's what we're doing when we're listening. We might be receiving messages, right? Like I can, like I said, there's cars going outside, but I'm not actively receiving those. I'm just hearing them, right? Does that make sense? So because listening is active, and that's the way an audience or a person taking in the information, that's the biggest way they participate in the communicative process, is super important, right? So that's the first sort of chunk. Why is it important? Why do we do it? How is it contextualized in terms of communication? So set that up. So now we're going to talk about what listening is and how we do it. So the book has steps. And if we were in class, I'd make you guess these. We're just going to fast track this, especially because I have some Mizzo issues with the book. So they say the steps are hearing, understanding, evaluation, and respond. Okay, so I called to the book. I want credit for shout out to the book. And I'm not saying the book is wrong, because that would be silly. It's no right and wrong, right? It's all about construction and how we're thinking about things. But I don't think the book doesn't use the words and that I always use, and leaves out a couple of pieces that I think are really important. So I'm going to walk through this based on how I usually think about this and teach this and what I've read from other sources. And if you want some of the other books I've used to teach this, they're mostly public speaking texts, which is maybe why it's a slightly different model. So the first thing is I don't love this word hearing as a first step. Remember, I think hearing is the inactive process where sounds just are coming in and you hear them, but you're not actively listening to them. So my first step, right? Like if I throw something at you, I can throw it at you and it can hit you and bounce off of you. That's hearing, right? What happens when you catch it? If I throw something at you and you actively catch it, that's receiving. I think those are in the right order. These might be switched, so don't be too mad at me. That's when you receive the message. In sign language, this is the sign for like listening. And I love that because it's like there's something being received by your ear. I have a great story about this. So when I was a little girl, little tiny Mizzo, I wasn't tiny. This was like, I would ride the bus home, so middle school, early high school. And I would come home on the bus, and every afternoon they played Saved by the Bell on TBS. And the weird thing about TBS was that the episode started 5 minutes after the hour and ended 5 minutes after the hour, right? So what that meant for me was that when my mom would have dinner ready at 6 o'clock, she would be yelling us to come eat at the best time of an episode. So here we'd be like fully engrossed in Saved by the Bell. If you didn't watch Saved by the Bell, I'm sorry. It's so good. At least it was when I was that age. So we'd be fully engrossed in an episode, and all of a sudden I would receive a message, and the message would be my mom saying, "Megan, now!" And I'd be like, she's so mad. Why is she so impatient with me? Why, right? Like, that's weird. Well, that's the first message I had received. That's not the first message she had sent, right? She had been at the edge of the living room going, Megan, Megan, it's dinner time. Megan, Megan Marie, Megan, now, right? And that one was the first one I received, the one I actively caught and processed, right? The other ones went past. I didn't catch them, right? I didn't receive them. Have you ever talked to either, this happens with little kids, but also older people, or if you've ever seen somebody just dazed out and you're talking to them, you say something to them, and they clearly can't are not picking up what you're saying. And then, so they're dazed, and then you say something, and then they're like, what? And they kind of pop out of it. That's them receiving the message, right? So once somebody receives a message, the second step, I put the word understanding. The word I like even better is comprehension, or the comprehending stage. But I always also put up the word understanding. This is a real processing stage, right? I love thinking about little kids with this stage. Have you ever told a little kid something they don't understand and they go, like the look up, the like, it is like you can see their brain hurting. When people say, I can see your wheels turning, this is the stage they're referencing. In sign language, when you like think or process something, this is the sign. And that's what I picture, right? That you've received a message and now you're trying to like put together what it means. There's an important distinction because the next step is evaluation. And these can happen super quick at the same time. They can be almost indistinguishable. But I want to make sure to note that the second step focuses on valuing, right? On adding some sort of social or purposeful, like, valued understanding. Whereas the comprehension stage is separate from value, right? So if I throw something at you and it hits you, you might immediately be like, ow. Well, that is evaluation. Like you've already put a negative value on me throwing something at you, right? Or maybe I threw confetti at you and it was positive and you were like, yay, confetti, right? But the confetti exists by itself, right? Like your brain going, this is confetti. She threw something at me. That understanding is the comprehension stage. What it means in terms of yourself, society, your situation, etc., is the evaluation stage. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? I've said this before, that we often combine the thing with the value, right? So let's say you find out I like to find something. Oh, swearing. I swear sometimes in class, right? I use swear words sometimes in class. And the swearing is its own thing, right? The fact or the tangible, like we can record that I swear. Some people are going to evaluate that as a good thing. I've had a lot of students say, I really love how you talk like a real person. I really love how you, you sound like me. It's comforting. They have this sort of positive evaluation of me using colorful language in class, right? Some people don't care either way, right? Their evaluation is very neutral. It's like, yep, she swears, whatever. And some people, I once had on an eval many years ago, the swearing is very unprofessional, which I was like, you thought I was professional otherwise? That's exciting. My mom does not like swearing. She does not like the swear words. As a kid, as kids, we couldn't even say shut up. She'd say, we don't say the SU word because the S word was something else. You know what I'm talking about. So evaluation is separate from the swearing. I'm always going to be swearing in any of those situations. That's a tangible thing you can prove or track quantitatively. But the evaluation is more qualitative or value-based, right? So once you receive the message, you comprehend the message, you start to evaluate or think, what does this mean? And then you can start thinking about in terms of response. Now, a lot of times, um, respond. I changed tenses halfway through. Um, a lot of times, I'm saying something smart. Oh, a lot of times this happens real fast. So someone will receive a message, comprehend, evaluate, and already be responding. When someone starts to say something and already the person is nodding, that's a response, right? So these often happen really fast, and we're gonna watch a video that sort of shows how fast these steps can happen, right? Now, the step the book did not talk about, and I'm not gonna, let's see if I can do it over here. Some people or texts put it at the end. I don't like to put it at the end. I like to think of it as a step that can happen at any point, right? And that is memory or remembering. Memory, I remembered from listening. If you are a musical fan, you thought that was funny. If you're not, you thought that was weird. And either way, you probably think Cats is bad. Anyway, okay. There's one Cats fan in the class who's like, I love Cats! The longest running musical of all time. Okay, so memory can happen at any point, right? I love when you remember something before because sometimes what'll happen is you've got to do these steps multiple times. So if you've ever received something, comprehended it, and then had to re-comprehend because you misunderstood. That happened today. I had said, I'm just going to shut my door. And what I meant was, I'm not going to pick up my room for when mom comes home. I'm just going to shut my door and all my stuff will be in there. And my sister thought, I'm going to shut my door to record this video. And so then what she said afterwards didn't make any sense, evaluation-wise. So then I had to go back and re-comprehend. I love when you comprehend something wrong and your memory happens here, and then you remember it and you're like, I knew that was wrong, but I don't remember what happened after that, right? Sometimes we remember the value stage a big time. I don't remember what she said, but I remember I was upset about it, right? Sometimes we just remember the reception stage, how we were startled or how it came in or how that immediately thing hit us. So the book doesn't talk much about memory, but I think that is important in terms of how we are doing these all the time. So now we're gonna watch a video, and it's a Sesame Street video, so we're gonna watch it, and it'll kind of walk you through these stages, but you'll be able to see them. So really, really fun.